Okay, guys, we are back here on the Wrestleview International Desk, Phoenix 92.5 FM. Guys, sorry for the metal. It's the only CD I have with me today.
Yeah, we were wondering.
Yeah, I have like what.
You couldn't have brought your Huey Lewis and the News greatest hits.
I don't have it with me. I love Huey Lewis and the News.
I did enjoy the disco music during the ad break, though.
Oh yes, definitely.
It reminded me of Disco Inferno.
Oh god, and that's a very good segue, Kev.
Thank you.
Because we are.
He's done this before.
Oh, yes.
Professional in the studio. But so we are going to talk about the most controversial man in professional wrestling, and no, it's not Eric. It's not Eric Bischoff.
Chris Benoit.
Who?
Stevie Richards.
Stevie Richards.
Well, we are going to talk about Vince Russo, of course.
Dun, dun, dun.
The man,
Russo.
the man, the myth, the legend that is Vince Russo. Now, guys, of course, the text line is open 085 1050 181. Right now, so how this is going to break down? Gary and myself are, of course, going to be attacking Vince Russo. And Kev will be defending Vince Russo for some reason.
You can't see this, but I'm shaking my head.
And Martin will be the control, who is neither for nor against, but just will interject from time to time. And also,
happy to be here.
And just on a side note, Corey McChrystal is very sad that he couldn't make it this evening. But we will persevere anyway. Okay, so some of the great crimes that Vince Russo is accused of. He's accused of groups like Sports Entertainment Extreme, which is sex, the Voodoo Kin Mafia, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Terry Invitational Tournament.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he likes his acronyms.
Yes, he does.
He is credited with the heel beard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah, he's credited with the heel beard.
He's got a great beard.
He does. He does. I don't think anyone is going to argue with that.
No. He is the closest thing to a wrestling auteur, as in he's very, very fond of gimmicks like pepper on a pole, handling on a pole, full creative control with what he's doing. He's credited as one of the architects of the Attitude Era.
Yep.
Now, for the really bad stuff. He is credited with basically destroying TNA, more so than it was. He is credited with giving himself the WCW World title. He is credited with killing WCW. And, of course, basically everything wrong with WCW has at one point been blamed at Vince Russo. Now, I will say, for anybody that wants some non-biased or really biased view, respectively, check out the kayfabe commentaries. You get to see that Russo actually is quite a good booker, and he knows what he's doing. It's just for some reason the wheels fell off once he doesn't have a filter. And I also will recommend reading his books, particularly Rope Opera is very, very good. Now, with that said, I think it's only fair, Kevin, because you're on your own, mate. Why should we maybe give Russo a little bit of a break?
I definitely think that people tend to focus on his negatives, and they also,
there are a lot of negatives.
There are a lot of negatives, yes, but as you guys said, he was one of the architects of the Attitude Era, and I know a lot of people like to dismiss that by saying, oh, well, Vince McMahon was his filter, and that's true. But at the end of the day, he was filtering Vince Russo's ideas, and I think if he works in his right capacity in a team, it can work very well, because he wasn't fired from WWF. Vince McMahon never said, you're doing a terrible job, out the door with you. Vince Russo left of his own accord because he wanted a challenge in WCW, which we'll get to later on, the money.
If anything, actually, Vince McMahon highly rated him and Ed Ferreira, because they were looking for a way out of their contract. Didn't even have a contract, but they were looking for a way out. So they requested double their salary, knowing that Vince McMahon wouldn't accept this. And when Vince McMahon said to Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira, what do I need to do to make you stay? They said, you need to double our salary. And on the spot, Vincent McMahon said, done. And so obviously Vincent McMahon highly rated them at the time,
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, just to add what Martin said, because he saw what Vince Russo's strengths were. He is a great idea guy. He's a great big picture guy, but even he admitted it in Rope Opera himself, which I finished last week, that he's not so good at the details. He's not so good at the polishing off. So he would give Vince an idea. Ferrara would do the writing, I assume, and Vince would say, okay, we won't do this, we'll polish this, we'll change this a little. and then what they would come out with would be a good product. It's an era. The Attitude Era is an era that is looked fondly upon.
Very
by
rose
fans.
tinted.
Very rose tinted. I agree.
The work on this one, the work that Gary mainly is doing on the Attitude Era on the show, really illustrates that not everything in the Attitude Era was.
There was a lot
awesome.
of stuff thrown at a wall and seen what stuck.
We haven't even got to 1999 yet, which I can't wait for.
We're
choppy PPM.
Oh, good Lord. I actually stopped watching wrestling in 1999.
Well,
I can't remember the exact reasoning, but I just remember not liking it anymore, and I thought I need a break from this.
yeah.
There was a lot of lows in the Attitude Era, but I think the highs were so high.
Yeah,
There was few highs, but they were so high they just
and as you always say, Dara, history will always favour the winners.
That's it.
They'll be able to rewrite and spin a tale.
Exactly.
I
tell you what's weird, guys. We've never got a WWE hatchet job of Vince Russo, and I think that's because if they did, they'd be killing their sacred cow of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I agree with Kev that yes, but it was that team. It had to be Vince McMahon, Vince Russo, and Ed Ferrara.
Yeah,
it had to be. And I think if Vince Russo had left and gone to WCW without Ed Ferrara and Vince McMahon was still there, I genuinely think WWF would have tailed off as well. It had to be those three, and without one of them, what did they call it? There's a German word for it. Oh, it'll come to me. It's basically you're greater as the sum of your parts rather than each individual.
Yeah,
and that's what it was, and that's inevitably what happened to WCW. I'm nowhere near a WCW aficionado, the likes of Corey, and I assume Kevin has very good history of WCW. So, but the only things that I always get from WCW are the likes of Ed Ferrara doing the parody of Jim Ross,
Oklahoma. Yeah.
And I mean, to me, that's indefensible.
No.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and defend that whatsoever.
No, but we will get to WCW in due time. But I just want to finish up with his WWE stuff before we go into it. Vince Russo is credited with really bringing the edge of the Attitude Era.
Stone Cold.
The Stone Cold stuff, but also like
Crash TV,
Crash TV,
exactly what it is.
But you had your Satanism with the Ministry stuff,
Taker,
the New Brood stuff, the vampirism.
That was my favourite Undertaker gimmick, just for the record. I really loved his Ministry of Darkness stuff.
I hate it too, Mark.
Really? Oh, man.
I liked the goatee. That was pretty.
That was amazing. I was a goth kid, so maybe that's why.
Fair enough.
But on the team, the three of them, were what they achieved. Russo, McMahon, and Ferrara was incredible. But I think Russo credits Ferrara much more than McMahon as a filter. As more of a guy to bounce ideas off, he says that Ferrara is 100% smarter than he is, much better writer than he is. But it was just...
Sorry, I just remembered the word gestalt.
Gestalt, yeah, of course.
But on Russo by himself in WWE, it was the 2 days after King of the Ring 96, he was still editor of the magazine, and he printed off what he wanted on the front cover, brought it to Vince McMahon, showed it to Vince McMahon, and it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, bloodied and battered in black and white with Austin 316, and Vince McMahon shot it down. But Russo kept pushing for it, and eventually they got it on the cover, and then the signs and the T-shirts started coming out. And as well as that, he also walked up to The Rock one night and said, when you're out there tonight, Rock, why not just try this one thing for me? He goes, yeah, sure, what's that? And he goes, why not refer to yourself in the third person and see how that works out? So those are pretty significant moments in the Attitude Era. He's
definitely done a lot of good, and I think when you watch him, he really gets certain parts of it. But when you're watching the kayfabe commentary stuff, he also doesn't seem to get wrestling the way some people do. You have to really understand Russo to understand what he does. What he does is actually due to the way he thinks about wrestling. And basically, Kevin, you can go into this a little bit and kind of explain it, because you do get it from his book,
yes,
how he sees wrestling. So talk about it there, sir.
Well, again, as you said, he doesn't look at wrestling as a wrestling purist would look at it. He doesn't consider a 5-star wrestling match entertaining for reasons not even I don't even understand. He's all about storylines. He's all about, what kind of cliffhanger can I end on to get the people coming back the next day?
Right.
What kind of story that can I do that has been so different, that's never been done before, that people will be talking about it for years and years to come? But for whatever reason, he doesn't seem to think that a good wrestling match is entertaining. I mean, I mentioned earlier the three-ways between Joe, Styles and Daniels. They were great. Like, I would watch them continuously. I mean, I would happily watch them. But he's more on the entertainment side of things. I mean, he was referred to as a booker here. I think it was in kayfabe commentaries and in his book as well. He made clear that he doesn't want to be called a booker. He calls himself a writer. Yeah. And he always makes the distinction that a writer writes television shows.
Yeah, but that's true. And, you can really look at WWE at the time as a television show. Would you agree, Gary?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. And to back Kevin's point where he says, he doesn't see, as say, like a 25-minute 5-star stellar match as entertaining. And that's why the match quality during the Attitude Era...
Oh, the what match quality?
Exactly. Particularly on the Raws, because pay-per-view you had to kind of go all out. And that's where all the gimmicky stuff that he was very much into came into. But I can't, and when we go through the Attitude Era stuff, I'd say you'd be hard pressed to find a match that goes a half hour on Raw during that time.
Yeah.
Just as an explanation, that is the one thing I wanted to put out tonight. I kind of researched a little bit on Russo and the build up to this, but the one thing I wanted that stood out to me was there are 4 of us in the room tonight, Raw wrestling fans. I'm sure when we first seen wrestling and we first realised we liked wrestling, we probably all had that one thought that everyone else has. I want to be a wrestler when I grow up, and through whatever happens, you realise you wouldn't be cut out for it. You haven't got the look or whatever. Yeah. Then that fades. But at no point, and not only did he never want to be a wrestler, he enjoyed watching it. But at no point did he even believe, even as a youth, he never believed that any of it was real. And from the day one, he wanted to write. He went to. What wrestling school was it? I think it was in Long Island, and he went there not to learn how to wrestle, but just to learn the business side of things. I just found it very odd that at no point did he ever want to be a wrestler. Ed Ferreira wrestled on the Independence in California.
Bruce Bodine, I think
so.
Used, yes.
And Vince McMahon always wanted to be a wrestler, and his father kept him out of it. But at no point did Russo ever want to be a wrestler. Even when he went to do his training in the wrestling gym, it was purely just to see how the business was run. So I think that maybe I don't like that this person got into wrestling and was such a huge part of wrestling, but I do like how he got into wrestling. I like how he tried to contact Linda McMahon rather than going straight to Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it's very smart.
That was very smart.
Yeah.
But
the weird thing about it is, history portrays him as some idiot, and he's really not.
He's different.
He's totally different, yeah.
He's just different, and I can't compare him to anyone else. I don't know anyone else. You watch all the documentaries that the WWE released on DVD, that be on Netflix, anything at all, any interview you ever see is, when did you realise I wanted to be a wrestler at such and such point? Or, the Bobby Heenans, the Jim Rosses, they all wanted to start, when they started out, they wanted to be wrestlers. It didn't work out for them, but at no point did Russo ever want to be wrestler. I find it so strange.
Well, speaking of strange, I want to jump into WCW stuff, and I'm not going to go too far into it because it's very self-explanatory. Go from late 1999 up to 2000, right? It's a year, and that year did so much damage to WCW that it basically folded the very next year. So I'm going to name some angles here for you, Kev. Right? Anything involving David Flair. Oklahoma, of course, you can't.
No, I'm not going to defend that.
You can't.
Really? You're not going to defend that?
That was wrong. There was nothing good about that angle at all whatsoever.
The Buff Bagwell wheelchair incident.
Jeez.
You were on a loser anyway. Buff Bagwell was involved in it.
Yeah.
And of course, the two biggest ones, well, a few biggest ones, Jay Leno's involvement.
Was he responsible for that? I think that happened when Bischoff was still in charge.
That happened when Bischoff was in charge, but it kicked off the celebrity thing, which would eventually end with David Arquette.
Well, you could argue the celebrity thing started at WrestleMania 1 when they got Cyndi Lauper and Muhammad Ali and Liberace and all these guys in, so I wouldn't exactly...
You have such a smug look on your face.
But did they win a world title?
No, they did not.
Okay, well, there we go.
Not even David Arquette wanted to win the world title.
No, he didn't. And it wasn't Russo's decision to give him the belt.
Exactly. He gets blamed for it, but it was Tony Schiavone's idea. He says it in interviews. He said it in the book. And again, Russo was when he first was brought into WCW, he was to be the creative director. And then he was told, you know what, you're going to be part of a committee. You're going to be part of a team. And they were having their production meeting, and it was decided, okay, it's just going to be a normal match. DDP's going to win. And Tony Schiavone said, well, what happens if David Arquette wins? Russo calls them all back, puts the idea out there. Everyone says, great idea. And no one says, oh, you can't do that. So they went ahead and they did it. And fair enough, he puts his hand up and says, yes, I okayed it, so the blame will come to me. But at the end of the day, it wasn't his idea.
Now, what about his infamous swerve policy, which is probably the major reason why we're so numb to swerves, because everything was a swerve or everything was on a pole.
Absolutely. And me and Martin were actually talking earlier on about, do you remember the San Francisco 49ers match where there were actually 4 poles, one at each turnbuckle? And
wow, I've never seen this.
It gets better. It gets better. Oh, you've seen it, Darren?
Yes.
Above each pole there's a wooden box, and in each wooden box is an item. 3 random items, and 1 is the World Championship.
Yeah.
Feast or Fired.
He actually did. Yeah, this is the prototype for Feast or Fired.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can just picture YouTube crashing now.
Yes. Oh my God, I have to see this.
Go to YouTube, only for the image of Booker T holding a picture of Scott Hall with the most confused look on his face.
I'd be delighted.
And actually, here's the thing. When Booker T first won the WCW title, it was decided by Vince Russo. Even this was Bash at the Beach 2000, when Hogan said, that this doesn't work for me, brother. I want to beat Jarrett. I want to be the champion. All Vince Russo was thinking, Booker's walking out of here with the belt. This guy deserves the belt. I'm not going to pander to Hogan like Bischoff did.
Well, he still did pander to him, because he does actually in the timeline he does actually talk about this, and he says that he sold it to Hogan as an angle. So he was still pandering to him because of the whole creative control thing. But, this is from that, you bring a good point. We get the work shoots, which is still something now which we can never wash the stain off. Everything's a work shoot now.
Well, sure, we opened the show talking about one.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, he did, in fairness, he hit on a good formula when he first started doing the work shoot thing, and then he just rode it into the ground. It got to a point where when something shooty happened, you just thought, it's just another Vince Russo swerve. I mean, they're fine when they're few and far between and they actually have an impact. If you go back and look at the CM Punk pipe bomb, it was so out of the normal at the time that people thought, well, this actually is real. But, I remember Martin rang me the next day.
You mean it wasn't?
No, it wasn't, sorry.
Don't destroy my dreams.
But the thing is, if that was Russo, he would have CM Punk coming out doing that every week, and it would just lose its impact.
He had commentators reacting and saying, this is off script. That sort of thing. But
yeah, he wasn't very subtle. He would really have them beat you over the head with it. They would actually have the commentators say, well, this is a swerve.
But it was very it was almost full circle when Vince Russo took over or started on the creative team in WWF as it was at the time. I think it all began with Vince McMahon throwing down a copy of the WWE magazine and telling his whole creative team that this is what it needs to be. We need to change, because Vince Russo was critical of the creative team at the time. Michael Hayes, Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, who had grown up in 1970s, 80s, and for some of the 1990s wrestling, they were inside a bubble. And he needed, the one word Vince Russo kept using was reality. He needed to make it reality based. And he did that, and it was great through 96 to 2000, 96 to 99. But he stuck with that formula for too long, and I'm sure if he was in TNA now, he'd be still using the same formula. And he's guilty of becoming what Cornette, Ross and Hayes was in 1996.
Here's a tidbit of information, apparently, and this comes from TV Tropes. Apparently, Cornette actually stopped eating his favourite hamburger so he could outlive Vince Russo, so he could visit his grave.
That guy needs to take a chill pill.
He does.
I have all the respect in the world for him. He's got a great mind for the business, but he obsesses about Vince Russo way too much.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get off on a Jim Cornette thing. That's a different hour.
That's a 2-hour special.
That is, yes.
But I am going to end this, and the last 10 minutes we have, to throw some TNA gimmicks at you, Kevin. And I feel really sorry for you, mate. Okay, well,
I need a drink.
The two here are the electrified steel cage match, which, for anybody, it was at Lockdown 2007. And I'll never forget when Team 3D were thrown into it and the lights would go off and LAX were thrown into it and then you'd hear the buzzing.
Yes, that's kind of like the whole 1960s Batman or Batman and Robin. It's so bad, it's kind of funny. You actually enjoy watching it just for the sheer terribleness of it.
Okay, I'll give you that. But one of my favourite matches of all time, for all the wrong reasons, is the Last Rites match, which had a suspended casket above the ring, which they call the deathbed.
Why haven't I seen this stuff?
Now, you haven't seen this, Mascar.
No.
It'll be on YouTube. It's
I'm going home to watch the 49ers yoke and
Turning Point 2006.
Turning Point 2006.
San Francisco 49ers.
I think better than all of those was the was it the 15-man or 16-man reverse battle royal?
Oh my God! How could I forget?
I laughed my ass off at that. Kevin spent a half an hour trying to explain the rules to me.
Just quickly, as I was telling Martin about this, I just asked casually, "Did you ever see the reverse battle royal?" And he was like, "No, what happened there?" So I had seen this. This was on an episode of Impact, and it was also on a pay-per-view one year. They expected people to pay for this.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So, and
they promoted it as well.
Yeah, and it was part of the larger Fight for the Right tournaments.
Yep.
And I couldn't find the words, even though I'd seen it. So I thought, okay, I'll pull up the Wikipedia page. And there is an actual Wikipedia article on this. Someone took time to write about this, and I was
probably Russo.
I was reading it verbatim, and I was stopping halfway, thinking, what is this?
I honestly thought like he was pulling my leg. He wasn't reading anything off his screen.
Then I had to pull. That's another thing to look up on YouTube. I think I ended up showing it. Yes, because they all started off outside the ring.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Actually, I'm going to watch that tonight. You actually just see them scrambling to get into the ring. It's the most ridiculous thing.
It really is.
You'll see for a while until you find the next teenager.
And that just gained support. And I think we can all agree on that he was fine in that team, but when he was given free reign, it's just no one to say, okay, this is a little too much. Listen, you might find things in a poll hilarious, but not wrestling fans do not.
And I will say, on the kayfabe commentaries, I think it is on the timeline one, where he's asked the question and he has such a smug look on his face. He goes, I like everything's better on a poll.
Yeah, Gary was just saying that. And just another quick thing, you mentioned the David Flair storyline. It actually resulted in one of my more favorite Russo moments that people don't really talk about, but I found it was very shocking. It was him shaving Ric Flair's hair off. He was actually shaved and bald.
Yes.
So it was basically like he took away his son by brainwashing him or whatever. And then he strips away his identity by taking off, his long blonde locks and just throwing them away. It was just really shocking at the time, and I thought it was very well done. It wasn't subtle, because subtlety isn't Vince Russo's strong point, SEX and all that.
Yeah,
I think Russo was good when he had the buffer off Ed Ferreira, and you could tie Vince McMahon into that as well.
Oh, Ed Ferreira was essential.
But I was watching the kayfabe commentaries, the live U-Shoot one, and he gets so annoyed when people say that, he needed the buffer or he needed the filter. He gets so defensive about that. So maybe it's just, as Kevin was saying, in his head, he thinks the majority of the stuff he comes up with is grade A.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But when you listen to him on interviews, you just have to take a step back. He's very convincing.
Yeah,
he really is.
Yeah, you listen to him, I was doing a little bit of research for this and listened to him. It's like, maybe he's not all that bad. And then you realise, no, he really is. Like when he left WWF, I'm burnt out. I need to take a break. 7 days later, he was writing Nitro.
Oh yeah.
He took no break.
Martin, when you read Rope Opera, you come away and you're like, he's okay.
Yeah.
Totally understand what he did.
Because Derek gave me a loan of that book and he said, just read it, and then tell me what you think when it's finished. And I put the book down and I was like, and he's actually alright.
Yeah.
I think Kevin's just been brainwashed.
No.
He's also a huge fan of Kevin Nash.
Well, so is Gary.
Oh, huge fan of Kevin.
There we go.
Wolfpack for life, yo.
The smartest man in wrestling.
He really is.
Yeah,
that chap is so smart.
With such limited ability and mobility, he became the longest reigning champion in the 90s.
What a hero.
The WWF. I mean, He's such a smart guy.
I just one last thing on Nash.
Okay.
I was watching the U shoot with Nash, and he was saying, you know, because like one of the questions was why were you so lazy in the ring and stuff, and he said he remembers his first match that he had with Hulk Hogan, and he really wanted to impress Hogan, so he got him in like a proper tight headlock, and Hogan just goes, "Brother, they've already paid." So he was like, "All right," so he just started working lazy. Genius, absolute genius.
He's also very funny as well. We were me and Martin watched the infamous Sid promo.
Oh my god! I loved Kevin Nash in TNA.
Yeah, he was. He's amazing.
If
Walk
Chet
it
Lemon.
off, Alex.
See, when he came back, when he came back in 2011 with Booker T, why they made Booker T a commentator and not Kevin Nash is beyond me.
I
Or
don't know.
just the two of them.
It was awesome.
Imagine Black Snow and Chet Lemon doing NXT.
It would be awesome.
Amazing.
All right, guys. So we are going to have to wrap it up here for this week on Phoenix 92.5 FM. But, of course, Martin and Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Guys,
Thanks
quickly,
for having us.
As sponsors of the show, plug it out there.
Just to say that we're having a Halloween sale starting tomorrow for 1 week, or all the prices are 50% off. Still free delivery all over the world. And we're also, actually, Kevin, if you want to tell them about the table quiz.
Yes, we're having a Survivor Series table quiz the 20th of November in the Clifton Courts at 8 o'clock. So you can get team tickets. They're €20 a pop per team. If you go to TwoCountTV.com, you'll be able to pre-order them on there. And you can also order them on the Facebook shop. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/TwoCountTs. Twitter page, twitter.com/TwoCountTs.
Fantastic. And Gary, what's your Twitter, sir?
It's at GuardWVI Desk.
All right, brilliant. And when you come back next on the show, you will be able to give us live feedback of the live Raw.
Yeah,
So,
hopefully.
All right, guys. So we will see.
If I don't get lost in Vegas.
So, guys, until next week here on the Wrestleview International Desk, this has been Phoenix 92.5 FM. We'll see you next week, live at 9 p.m. Check out the Wrestleview International Desk every Friday for a full hour, 9 to 10 p.m. every single Friday night for all your WWE, TNA and other wrestling news, debate and discussion. With myself, Dara O'Connor, Corey McChrystal and Gary Herden. We'll see you then.